If you don't remember anything else I said today, the most important thing is I want to thank you. I've been in Washington for a little over 4 years, and the one group that cares about two things is Heritage. They actually really care about good policy, and they really push good policy. They bring up good policy. They promote good policy. They help you move good policy along. They work with your office. They do an unbelievable job with policy. And that's great, and that's helpful. But if you look at it, there's only one group up here that is really active both on the policy side and on the action side. And that's Heritage Foundation and Heritage Action. So if you want to be involved in somebody that wants to get to the result, because you can have a great policy, but if the wrong people get elected, if the people up here don't have any support, you're not going to get the result. So my background, I'm a business guy, and all I've ever thought about is how do I get over here? You always think about you're here, and I got to get over here. Well, you got to do all of it. You can't just do part of it. And so thank you for supporting the Heritage Foundation. Thank you for supporting Heritage Action, because you are the key if we're going to turn the country around. Now, I'm going to tell you how bad it is up here, but I'm actually very optimistic about where we can go. I don't believe there's any limit of what we can accomplish. The only limit is us. The only limit is our ability to dream and make things happen. Now, my background is I'm one of the most blessed people in this country. I was born to a single mom. We lived in public housing, and I thought my mom was ridiculous when I was a kid. She said, "You're going to make straight A's. You're going to go to church all the time. You're going to be an Eagle Scout, and get out of the house and start making some money." So when I was 7 years old, I was selling TV guides door to door after school every day until I sold the 50 copies I got each week. I told Ann and I are blessed. Today's our anniversary. We have 2 daughters, 6 grandsons, and 1 granddaughter. And I told my seven-year-old grandson the other day, I said, when I was 7, I was working every day selling something. And I actually never stopped. I had to sell potato chips to go to Boy Scout camp because my parents didn't have the money to pay for it. I had to sell enough stuff to get there. And so I've been selling stuff door to door like that all my life. And so I asked my grandson, when is he going to start selling things? What was he going to do? So all the books I send to my grandkids, it's all about how are you going to build a business? And how are you going to make sure you're a productive citizen? So I was born to a single mom. She told me, thank God you live in America because there's no limitation. You can be anything you want to be. So when I was governor, I used to go to schools a lot, and I tell these kids, I said, look, I don't know if you know your dad. I never met my dad. Never met him my whole life. I had a tough as nails mom. We lived in public housing. I said, how many of you want to be the governor? And by the end, I said, well, you could live in the governor's mansion, you have Secret Service, you get to meet the president, you have dinner at the White House, you meet kings and queens, you get to eat whatever you want to eat. By the end, they're all going to be the governor. And then when I told them, because here's what happens, the problem we have is there's so many kids today that have no hope. And there's maybe adults that don't believe there's no hope. And so what I wanted to make sure these kids knew is if I could do it, they could do it. So I ran for governor. I'd been in business all my life. I built companies. When I was 40, I had 285,000 employees. I built the largest hospital company. I built a bunch of manufacturing companies. I ran for governor in 2010 because what people forget about is Florida was in the tank. We had lost 832,000 jobs in 4 years. More people left the state of Florida than moved in 2010. We had 1.1 million homes in foreclosure. Home prices had dropped in half. It doesn't sound like Florida, does it? Our sunshine didn't change, right? The people didn't change. We have great people in our state. We changed how government worked. I ran in a Republican primary against a guy that had been in Congress for 22 years and sitting attorney general. And I ran on one issue. I'm going to get people back to work. My slogan was, let's get to work. I promised 700,000 jobs. Every economist said it couldn't happen. We actually got 1.7 million jobs. And guess how many jobs government created? Zero. We actually took the number of state workers from 128,000 to 112,000. We stopped all the tuition increases. We became number one in higher education, top 5 K-12 education, 47-year low in our crime rate. I went through every line of the budget every year, 4,000 lines, written purpose. If you didn't make the purpose, I vetoed your money. Now, I've been up here for 4 years. I ran to do the exact same thing up here. DC is completely dysfunctional. What you see on TV is actually how it works. There is no accountability up here yet. There's not an accountability in any bill we pass. Nothing. None. We don't pass budgets. We don't review budgets. You can't even get a copy of the budget. You can get a copy of a spending bill. We don't do budgets. I'm on the budget committee. So I mean, just let's think of what's happened just in the last 2 years. It takes 60 votes in the Senate to pass anything, right? We could have fought. We're having a great fight right now, and I'm optimistic on the debt ceiling. We could have done that in 2021. 10 Republicans helped the Democrats pass the debt ceiling with no structural change, no cuts to anything. And then we passed an infrastructure bill with more than 10 Republicans. It took at least 10 Republicans to pass. We passed that, and it spent incrementally for roads, bridges, airports, and seaports. This is infrastructure. What I spent per year in Florida for those 4 things, that's what incrementally we're going to spend over the next 10 years for the country. It was all Green New Deal. We passed a CHIPS bill with Republican support. Here's how it's going to work. If anybody here works for Intel Corporation, here's how your company's going to get money. The company made $20 billion last year, CEO $180 million. I'm happy that people make money. I'm a business guy. We're going to give them $4 billion to build a plant they committed to build, a $1 billion tax credit, $4 billion tax write-off. Their CEO came and testified. Now, this is a bill that Republicans helped them pass. Their CEO came and testified, said, this is an anti-China bill. Oh, absolutely. I said, right now, about 40% of your revenues come out of China. You're going to change anything you do when you get all that money? No. I said, when China invades Taiwan, will you change what you do? Absolutely not. Horrible bill. Omnibus, in other words, omnibus bill. We could have waited 2 weeks and Kevin McCarthy would have written that bill, right? We could have waited. They gave us at 1:30 in the morning, the Tuesday before Christmas, because everybody wants to go home for Christmas. We could have waited. We could have done another continuing resolution, which we've been doing since October. $1.7 trillion, 3 times the size of the Bible. We voted on it within 48 hours, 7,500 earmarks, and it took Republican votes to pass, and it did. Yeah. So I decided to run against Mitch McConnell. This has to change. We actually have a Republican Party. We have conservatives all over the country. We just don't have enough of them in D.C. People go and campaign for stuff. They're hell-bent on balance that darn budget, cutting taxes and fees and doing all this stuff to reduce the regulation. What happens when they get here? Is it the water? So I didn't win. All right? The vote was supposed to be in January, got rushed in November, so we didn't win. But guess what? It's the start of a new dawn. We're going to start having accountability up here. And we're doing more of it right now. We're actually having in our lunches, we actually talk about policy. So I believe that if we continue to fight for what we believe in, I believe that because look, the country's in deep trouble. But I believe if we fight and get the right people elected and help those people when they get elected with policy ideas and how to help them sell those ideas through the action side, that we'll change the direction of the country. I put out a plan, and within 24 hours, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell attacked me with the same talking point. A complete lie. Because guess what? Up here, no one wants a plan. Like when I was 40 years old, I owed $10 billion. Do you think I could have gone to any bank and said, I don't know what I'm going to do with the money. I don't know if I'll get a return, but will you give me some money? No. But up here, they believe they can run for re-election just saying, that guy's bad. So if I went to the bank and said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but the people in this industry that I want to be in are really not doing a very good job, so give me a bunch of money. They would have laughed at me. But that's what we're doing. So we have got to have a plan. I put out mine. You can go to rescueamerica.com. And what I tell people, you don't have to agree with my plan. Put out your own. Let's fight about it. That's what we're supposed to do up here. If you follow the Senate right now, we generally don't have many amendment votes. We don't even go through committees. The bills come to the floor, generally with no amendment votes, and then we just have to do up or down. It shouldn't work this way. So when I ran, I said, we're going to run this place, like you should run it. We all represent our states. We should be willing to fight over what we believe in. If I can't sell it, that's my fault. If it's different, if you should be doing something different for your state, vote that way. Because if we all did what the Constitution said and represented our states, then we wouldn't have $31.5 trillion worth of debt. If you look at the CBO score, we're going to get to mid-50s in debt within 10 years. And by the way, we don't have any conversations about that. So let me just talk about the debt ceiling conversation we're having right now. So 6 of us have been working together in the Senate since the run against McConnell. Mike Lee, Ron Johnson, Mike Braun, or Rand Paul, and Ted Cruz and I. And we've been every week talking about how are we going to change the conversation about the fiscal responsibility of Congress. And once a week we've been meeting with House members. And so the Freedom Caucus actually put out something that was logical that they can sell. The bites at the apple to fix this fiscally is, one, get everything we can to get structural change and cut everything we can with this debt ceiling fight. Then pass real budgets. Go through, have votes on the budget. Let's fight over it. And then everything we do, we're every day. How do we get to live within our means? And by the way, people say you can't do that. We all do it. We all do it. I walked in with a $4 billion budget deficit, and I remember I went through all 4,000 lines right after I got elected. I put out a budget, and they said, "Well, we do this." I said, "Well, my family had that problem, and we didn't get any money." I said, "What?" I said, "Why do we have to do that?" And people were shocked that somebody would actually go through the budget. And I said, "By the way, this is what our projected revenues are. We will not spend more money than this. So we will allocate the dollars, looks like every family does." That's what we have to do up here. It can't be up here, everybody gets everything they want. That way we make everybody happy. And that's why we have $31.5 trillion worth of debt. So I'm optimistic. I don't know where the House is going to end up, but I'm going to do everything I can to work with Kevin McCarthy and the House to have a responsible debt ceiling fight where we have structural change, where we stop this reckless spending and we claw back every dime we can. We get people back to work. I responded to a Wall Street Journal piece, and I was in there yesterday. I started working when I was a kid. Why don't our kids work? We ought to work. So I've had Bill since I've been up here. It's called Let's Get to Work, as you expect. If you're able-bodied, why are you on government programs if you don't want to work? Why? I mean, think about it. Would you tell your kids to do that? No, I'm not gonna. I don't want you to work. No, I don't think it's good. I'll just support you the rest of your life. And by the way, that'd be one thing if you actually had money. What if you know that you don't have the ability to do it, which our federal government doesn't? So thank you for all your support. I want to thank everybody at Heritage for what they're doing. I want to thank you, each of you, for supporting Heritage because they have a big impact. So I think now I'm doing questions. Oh, yep. I've answered most things, so I'll try again. Okay. Yeah, I can repeat your question. I can hear it and I'll repeat it.
Yeah, so state is charging, let's say, roughly 5% tax, maybe not Florida. Each state charges like roughly 5% tax, but the federal government is taking like 40-something% of an average person's money. I don't think that's the way the founders intended it. You're on the budget committee. I'll just let you take it from there.
So our government should be way smaller. So when I build companies, I started companies from scratch, and so what you got to do is you got to figure out how to reduce your overhead all the time. So, and then when I was in manufacturing, the expectation was I had to cut my cost every year to keep my clients. I mean, by contract I did. It's totally different. It's totally different in government. As soon as I went to the governor's office, the expectation, here's the attitude. If you don't spend more money, then you must not care about that issue. It's not to solve problems. I'll give you a story. My whole campaign in 2010 was about getting people back to work. So all I've done with my life is I bought screwed up businesses and I fixed them up and I sold them. That's how I made money. So I started going agency by agency. I'll just give you one story. I go to the agency that does unemployment. Okay, it's right after I got elected. I said, how's it work? They said, Governor, we're open 6 days a week because unemployed Floridians don't have enough time to apply for unemployment during the week. It gets better. They're dead serious, by the way. I said, I read this article that you could be in prison and continue to get your unemployment benefits until they run out. Well, yeah. I said, you realize we run the prison system. We know who's in prison. I said, if you found somebody that got a job and kept their benefits, would you ask for the money back? No, we didn't do that. I said, if you go on unemployment, do you have to do anything? They said, yeah, we have to apply for 5 jobs a week. I said, how's that going? We don't enforce it. I said, let me ask you a question. What is your purpose? Most of these problems, it's not the people that work in government, it's the leadership in government. I said, what is your purpose? They said, our purpose is to get everybody we can in Florida on unemployment because the state only pays 26 weeks. Thank God for Barack Obama. He gave us another 73 weeks for free because we don't have to pay for that, right? And that's 99 weeks. Eventually, our economy will turn around if we can get everybody we can on unemployment. That was the attitude. So I said, okay, so we're going to enforce the law, and we're not going to allow people to commit fraud. So when I left, there were 22 million people in Florida. There was about less than 100 million people or 1 million people on unemployment when I got started. And when I left, there were 61,000. All we did was we went to everybody on unemployment and say, why are you on unemployment? And we worked to find everybody a job. So the way we should think about government, we should make government smaller every year as your taxes should go down every year. So as an example, even since 2019, through this pandemic, our population grew by 1.8%. Well, shouldn't your taxes go down by 1.8% then? I mean, we should share the same, unless it's some massive problem, we've solved most problems. And by the way, here's how bad the numbers are. Population since 2019, pre-COVID, is up 1.8%. How much is Biden's budget up? 55%. So I think what we should expect is every tax and every fee we could cut or get rid of, we should do it every year. But I can tell you what, the most important thing we can do, the taxes are important, it's the regulatory environment and the permitting. So of all the things I did as governor of Florida to get more jobs, it was one, I asked for them. Number two is I cut 20% of regulations, right? We didn't need them. And I streamlined the permitting. So when I became governor of Florida, you were going to we have 5 water management districts. You were entitled to a permit, but we made sure you hired a lobbyist and a lawyer before you could get it. And the average time to get a permit you were entitled to get was 2 years. By the time I left, it was under 5 days. Because you were entitled to it. But no, it shouldn't be 5% or 40%. It should be, I mean, we should cut it every year. What else? So I'm supposed to do the mic. I follow the rules, whatever the rules are.
Hello. Can I hold it? Oh. So we know when people run for Congress, which is not easy, these people are filled with integrity and real commitment and real intention to do good. And then what happens in Washington? They get compromised somehow. Is it the lobbyists? Is it the Chinese? Is everybody in Washington being paid off by somebody to keep things exactly the way they are? Because that's what it seems like. You know, you don't call me out, I won't call you out, and nothing changes. What can be done about that? And we know Biden is one example, but beyond that, what else is going on there?
So here's the way I think about it. First off, people come to you guys for money, right? All these politicians come to you for money. How many of them would you hire? So whose fault is it? Theirs or yours? What are your standards? And then if you help somebody, think about it like a job interview. When I ran, I gave people a plan. I had a 7-step plan. And then I told people constantly if I did it. Right? And so I told people, here's what I'm going to do if you hire me, and here's how I'm doing. Why don't we do that as donors? Say, okay, what are you going to do? Write it down and say, okay, so this is exactly what you're going to do, and I want a report card on how you did. Because they're going to come back to you for money. Are you going to give money if they don't do it? If they don't do other stuff in your life? If they say they're going to cut your grass and they don't cut it, you give them money? It's us. We've got to have higher standards. Now look, there's unbelievable pressure to go along. Let me tell you how the money follows in the Senate. So in a Senate race, there's 3 pockets of money. There's what you can raise for a campaign. You can raise $6,600, thanks to Biden inflation, it went up, $6,600 per person per cycle. Then the Democrats have a Senate committee, Republicans have a Senate committee, and if you look at them, what they raise, they can be involved in about 6 races, and they can spend about $15 million a race. If you're good, right, you can raise $10 to $25 million for your campaign account. Schumer and McConnell each have super PACs. These super PACs will have $500 million in them. Now, the negative, and people can give whatever they want to those. No caps. There's caps on the Senate committee. Now, they have to pay more for the ads and stuff like that. But let me give you a race. My race in 10, Schumer's PAC spent $65 million against me. There's no way in God's green earth I could raise $65 million. So now, if the money flows that way, where do you think your allegiance is? Right? You're going to vote against the person that gives you the money to win your race? It's pretty hard to do when they might spend 30 or 40 or $50 million in your race. So there's a lot of pressure that way, and then there's a lot of pressure, like the first thing to tell you is, get along. Don't rock the boat. I remember I got my first job at a grocery store, and it was unionized. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, and the first thing they told me is, don't work that hard. We all need to make sure we all have a job here. So, I mean, there's lots of pressure to go along. But the way I look at it is, I mean, I didn't get helped by McConnell's PAC in 18. So, I mean, my job is if I don't raise my own money, it's my fault. So, and that's why I'm not worried about. I can vote in the best interest of my state. I don't have to worry about what somebody else is doing. Yep. What else? I think I'm supposed to do based on the mic. Are we done? Okay. All right. Okay, let me just finish with the last thing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for support of Heritage Foundation. Thank you to all the employees at Heritage Foundation. Thanks to everybody, for Jessica, everybody at the Heritage Action, because you are making a difference. And this is our opportunity. Peter Drucker said, if you remember what Peter Drucker said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. We have the opportunity to create the country we want if we put enough effort into it. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.